Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for joining this Friday afternoon webinar with me, Dan, from the Land App. I'm Head of Growth here and delighted to be able to take you through how we are building tools to help everyone going through the biodiversity net gain process. A bit of housekeeping at the start. As this is a webinar, your camera will remain off and your microphone muted, but that doesn't mean we don't want to hear from you. We'd love for you to interact with us through the Q&A function that is enabled on the bottom of your screen. So any questions you've got throughout the webinar, please ask them. And we've got a bit of time at the end of the session to go through them. What we tend to do is we might stay around for 10 minutes after the Q&A is finished, just if you've got any questions and you want to unmute yourself. And the session is being recorded and will be shared on our YouTube channel within the next 3 to 5 days. So probably on Monday, we'll try and get it out. As usual, we'd like to use these times to also ask our customers or potential customers a bit more information about themselves and how it can inform our product roadmap. And so as you leave the webinar, whether that's at the end or you might need to shoot early, please do take 5 minutes just to answer those questions. I think there's 6 or 7 that we've loaded up. It just really helps us and informs us on our next steps. So the agenda for today is that I've got five or so minutes just to obviously welcome you all and give you some updates. In particular, so there was an announcement yesterday from government, so I'll give you a bit of an update on that, although still need to do a bit of reading myself. We're then going to just talk through the main Land App functions that are hopefully going to help you maximize biodiversity net gain. So we're going to talk about our UKHabitat best guess baseline and a new tool that we're releasing for biodiversity net gain. Then I'll be giving a live demo of both of those 2 functions, followed by a Q&A session. We will be trying to end promptly at 2 o'clock. So as per usual, just wanted to let you know that we've got a YouTube channel. So if you go onto YouTube and search Land App, you should be able to find a whole wealth of previous webinars, demonstration videos, etc. that are relevant. So if you want to catch up with anything else we're doing, whether that's the Forestry Commission partnership, whether that's just an introductory session, or what you get from joining our different subscription tiers, lots of different videos on there. For this demonstration, there will be a bit of an introduction, but it might be a bit detailed. So if I feel like I've missed any of the key parts, YouTube's a really good place to get caught up with that. Oh, he says as he clicks on it. So just updates from the government announcement yesterday. I would like to say it was planned, didn't know they were announcing it yesterday, so good timing, really. So we heard yesterday that the official date for biodiversity net gain to go live is the 12th of February. So that's for major developments. And a major development is anything that's greater than 10 or more dwellings, or where the site is greater than 0.5 hectares. And that will be mandating a 10% net gain uplift for those developments. For small sites, the date is a bit more extended, and that's the 2nd of April 2024. And those small sites are any sites that are 9 or less dwellings, and any commercial developments where that floor space is less than 1,000 square meters. Also in 2025, we are expecting another announcement around the nationally significant infrastructure projects, but we haven't been given a firm date on that. And obviously with these announcements comes quite a lot of questions, but hopefully a lot of opportunities as well for the developers to really contribute to nature recovery in a very innovative and world-leading initiative, but for those landowners and advisors, opportunities to start getting funding to start creating and enhancing existing or new habitats. So we are very excited at Land App about the biodiversity net gain scheme. We know it's got complexities, but hopefully we're here to help allow you unpick the different steps and get ready for trading and hopefully benefiting from it. So we've kind of categorized how Land App can help in 2 main categories. The first is the planning stage. So that's the predominant amount of my demo today, is how you can use the Land App to start your plan That is both building the baseline. So if you're a land manager or a landowner, understanding your existing assets and starting to build a future plan to understand what amount of biodiversity units you could be looking to trade or how much uplift you could generate. And from a development site, building your baseline, i.e. where the existing site of potential development is going to happen, and starting to see the impact of that development. So you start to get an understanding of how many units you might be needing to purchase, whether you can do that on site or whether you might need to do off-site unit purchasing. So what I'm talking about today is for both sides of the equation. We're agnostic, and we're just trying to build a tool to allow you to build those plans to understand the next steps. As part of that planning, it's very important to collaborate, whether you're collaborating with your clients, if you're representing a particular individual. The Land app makes it very easy to start to share those plans in a safe, secure, but dynamic space. So you can see those plans being developed and see those scenarios being built. We then, of course, want for you to be able to formalize that into the official calculator. And so there are ways of you pre-populating and updating your biodiversity metric using the download function within Land app. On the other side, then, it is a digital register. So as part of your Biodiversity Net Gain application, you do need to officially register it through the .gov website. And what Land app can help with that is generating your site boundary. So you can now upload geospatial data to the digital register. You need a grid reference, which you can extract from Land app, and you need a hectarage as well. So you can do all of those things as part of your process, and I'll be demonstrating at least what the Land app does in those instances today. Plus, you obviously need a map as well, evidencing your management plan. So while you're building your unit calculation, you're building a plan, you're building a map, and all of that can be exported, ready for upload onto the .gov website. So the new tool that is going live next week on the 24th of Jan, I'm very excited about. We've built this because of the feedback we've had from our existing biodiversity tool. As of the 24th of January, all of our professional users, the users in the professional subscription, will be able to access this new net gain estimator tool. What it does, and I'll be demonstrating it in a moment, is it geospatially shows you where the units are being generated. So you run the tool through your baseline, through your future scenarios, and it outputs your uplift. Obviously, if you're a development site, your uplift will be a negative number if you're putting buildings on an existing site, but you still then start to calculate what requirements are needed for each part of your plan. We serve within that retention, creation, enhancement, and the post-site intervention total, as well as the baseline units, which allow us to calculate the uplift. As part of this process, and I'll explain it a bit more, we do use some proxies for strategic significance. This demo is on a strategic significance of 1, but there are certain areas of the country which I demonstrate will get that multiplier of 1.15 or a 15% uplift. This announcement doesn't mean we're discontinuing the existing tool. So any users who are already using the biodiversity reports tool, that is going to stay in production. And that I've got a bit of a slide at the end to show you what that is. But very much today's demo is going to be about this new tool that we're launching. Before I get into that tool, I just wanted to explain a bit more about our UKHabitat best guess baseline. And this is a data workflow that we've built in partnership with UKHab. UKHab Limited are the ones that created the classification itself, and have worked with Natural England to build the metric. The best guess baseline is a data creation that we do on your behalf based on any boundary within Great Britain. We're predominantly looking at England today, but the data set does work in Wales and Scotland. And in principle, what it does is it takes your licensed master map data. So you do need to have an Ordnance Survey license. For those that are public sector bodies and are part of the public sector geospatial agreement, we can use that license to help you get access to this data as well. But if you are a private entity, you do need a license when purchasing this data set. What we then do on your behalf is the Land app runs data queries for each one of those features within your master map. So you have a master map shape on the Land app, and we check against open layers such as priority habitat inventory, the forest inventory, etc. We check against earth observation, looking at daily views, temporal changes in grassland, looking at some other attributes that allow us to start to prioritize different habitats. And we also look at a vegetation model, which runs through a series of queries to output what we call a best guess baseline. And the best guess baseline is just a single clean geospatial layer with our best guess of what habitats fall within that boundary. Each feature then, so each of those polygons will be assigned a code, and that code is ready for input into the biodiversity tool. But as we are selling it as a best guess, we're getting better and lots of feedback is coming in, but it isn't going to be perfect. It isn't to replace an ecologist. It's to drastically speed up that time it takes for an assessment to be done. Instead of the ecologist having to draw all the shapes on a map, we have provided all the shapes for you, and you are then just improving it by either amending the habitat codes or adding condition scores as well. As a note, to use the BNG tool, you need to be in the professional subscription. What we've also released is a 30% discount for any professional subscribers when purchasing the best guess baseline. To get a quote for the best guess baseline, it's very simple. You can do it in app. I'll be demoing it in a moment. And we've also got some other guidance as well, more around the best guess baseline. As a note, we've made some improvements in January to it. So any previous users, thank you so much for your feedback. And I think I've got some thank yous in a moment. But as of January now, we've made quite a few improvements to moorland and upland habitats. It was definitely a weakness through some of our rigorous testing. And so, we've drastically improved the accuracy of detecting the different upland habitats. Our grassland detection is getting much better, particularly with the Earth observation, like the temporal view, the difference between temporary grassland and permanent grassland, but also picking up modified grassland as well in the area, looking at the Earth observation, so that more ryegrass-rich habitats. And we've also, with the help of some of the Forestry Commission data sets, now being able to further attribute the woodland types as well. So whereas previous, sometimes the output was woodland, W woodland or W1 broadleaf woodland, we've managed to get a bit further down the classification using a number of different data sets. And as I mentioned, it is a best guess. It is getting better. We're not here to sell you a perfect baseline. And just to reiterate, this isn't, we still need ecologists ground truthing the data to make sure it's accurate, but we are confident it is drastically speeding up time. If you are using the data set and there is any feedback, whether there's any errors or omissions, please let us know. You can contact me directly down at thelandapp.com or submit a support request through the app itself. And yeah, I just wanted to say we're very grateful for all the partners that have currently fed back into the software and the best guess baseline. We've had ecologists out double checking, feeding back where there's errors, and it's just making the models more and more detailed. So thank you so much. And we have got some case studies on those as well. So if you're interested about how other people are using the best guess baseline in relation to biodiversity net gain, the Oldham Wise case studies are really good. One around the Oldham Wise estate. We did some detailed ecological mapping and comparing outputs of ecologists' reports with the best guess baseline with the Wendling Beck case study and our official announcement with UKHab Limited as well. And you can get all these on our website if you head over to the case studies page, which is under the community. So the rules for biodiversity units in LandApp, before I move on to the demo, I just wanted to make sure you're clear on how we are handling biodiversity units and also some best practice. The first one is that we encourage for every site for you to have an authoritative layer that represents that site boundary, and make sure, particularly if you're using or working with multiple clients, make sure your naming convention for those layers is consistent. For example, boundary underscore site name underscore surname is a good way of handling the plans. Naming your maps consistently, again, very important. I would go for something like template type or surname. And what that means is, especially when you're using the data reports, that you're very clear on whose maps you're using if you're aggregating lots of sites across a BNG or other type assessment. For BNG specifically, what you need on your plan is one authoritative habitat map. So per site, you want to make sure you have one layer that represents the best source of truth for the ground. And that habitat map needs to be allocated level 3 plus codes in the UKHab hierarchy. And what I mean by that is if you've just got a habitat that's labeled G grassland, it will not generate any units. You need to make sure it's down far enough in the classification for there to be a unit assigned to it. So for example, G2A, lowland calcareous grassland, is a habitat that is eligible for biodiversity units, grassland isn't. And that's the same with woodland. If you've just got W woodland allocated, it's not enough. It needs to be W1G, other broadleaf woodland, for example. Bit of a rule of thumb that I tend to follow is if your code has got less than 3 digits, it's probably not eligible for BNG. There's one exception, which is G4 modified grassland is eligible, but everything else, you want to make sure that your code of your habitat type has got at least 3 characters, if not more. And then finally, you can use the publish function, which I'll show in a moment, to calculate the unit uplift. Just to reiterate, everything I'm showing now requires you to be on a professional subscription for the BNG element, but the UKHab Best Guess Baseline is available to everyone. You do not need to be on a paid subscription to purchase the Best Guess Baseline. You can do that within the free or the standard accounts. And then the other assumptions we make when calculating biodiversity units with this new toolbox is, well, first and foremost, LandApp is not providing any condition scores to the habitats. We're at a firm stance at the moment that we need an ecologist to confidently get condition assessments. As we get more training data, there might be an ability to assume condition based off some factors, but we do not feel like we have enough data or there's enough information out there and too much local nuance to properly assume condition. So for where we are at the moment, we won't be assigning condition scores. However, to calculate your biodiversity units, you do need condition scores associated to each of those features. For baseline units, you need a condition score associated to the baseline. And for your uplift units, you also need a condition score associated to your management plan. And so what we do with the toolbox, and I'll demonstrate this in a moment, is if you don't assign a condition score, we assume both are moderate. And what that means is you're only just going to get out the other end your baseline units and anything else you've amended. If you want to get enhancement units, you do need to put in to the management plans a condition score uplift. So for example, you make the baseline moderate and you make the future plan good, and you can get uplift units through enhancement. And then the other assumption we've made is that we will add on your behalf for the calculator, for the estimator, a significance multiplier of that 1.15 to all areas that are within Natural England Habitat Combined layer. This is a national data set that we've got hold of that you can see within LandApp, and I'll be demonstrating it in a moment, but it just gives us quite a nice proxy for strategic significance. Just to reiterate, that isn't fixed, and it is down to the ecologist's discretion to let you know whether that is a strategic site, but it just allows us to provide you that proxy. And the announcement, I think back in November, did mention the fact that all the local nature recovery strategies that are being developed will help inform the strategic significance. Local nature recovery strategies are devolved data sets, so they're kind of happening at different speeds and slightly different structures, but we are speaking to quite a few councils now who are leading the LNRSs, and we will endeavour to get them in as and when we can, because we think it's a really important driver for things like biodiversity net gain, but also things like countryside stewardship, making sure that everyone is fighting the same fight. Okay, so I'm going to go over to a live demo now. Just a reminder, any questions, please do use the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. The first thing to say is just, I'm going to assume for most of the demo that you've already got a LandApp account. Absolutely fine if you haven't. You know, everything I'm going to show from now is, you know, you can kind of get started straight away. We're at the landapp.com, so we're a web-based browser. You can sign up for free by hitting the free account. And if you've already got an account, you can log in. And just to point you towards the case studies that I mentioned, if you go into community, click on case studies, all of those lovely pieces of work that my colleague Kathy, who's on the call, and Tristan have been working on, you can have a read in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go from having nothing mapped, no units generated, to having a baseline habitat assessment, a best guess, a land management plan and some uplift units, hopefully in the next 15 or 20 minutes. And I want to demonstrate just the speed in which you can go from having nothing to having quite a lot of information about any one site. So you can see I was practicing earlier with that other web demo live. And for those professional users, remember you can assign it to a team, NatCat team. Okay, so the first thing I've done is I've created an empty map and I've been dropped on an interactive base map. For the demo, I'm going to be flicking between two different base maps. I really like Ordnance Survey Lite. So if you're an Ordnance Survey partner, you can obviously wire in your API key. And if not, you do need to purchase credit either directly or indirectly to make sure you can use this data set. And the other one I will be using as well, just to kind of compare, is the Bing imagery as well. So the first thing is I want to choose a site, and just to make it slightly more interesting so we can test the best guess baseline, I am going to try and find an area that's got some rivers and also some good priority habitats in. Okay, so this looks like it's got some fun things happening. Lowland dry acidic grassland. And I don't know this site at all, so I'm just going to firstly create a boundary of my area of interest and then take you through the steps of getting a BNG plan together. The first thing you want to do is you want to create a boundary that shows your area of interest. The way you do this is you click New, Use Template, and I want Ownership Boundary as my option, which I found there. I then going to pick from Land Registry. In this demo, I don't have an SBI number, although you can do this with an SBI number. Oh, coincidence, there's no Land Registry there. We can build that in a moment. And then what you do is you choose the areas of interest. So you can either just select one parcel, and you can click on multiple, or you can turn this label off, and what that does is that only chooses things within the same title number. So depending on how you want to handle it, you can do it like so. Click next and finish. And what I've then got is I've got an area of interest. If you want to add this area, we can do, but I think for the demo, I'm just going to use these land registry areas. So what that includes then is we've got some priority habitat, we've got some good quality improved grasslands and some other things, which will come out of my best guess baseline. The first thing I want to do is I want to basically merge this into an official ownership boundary and just tidy it up a little bit. So I've selected it all by right-clicking and then using this merge function at the top. And what that's done is that's now just dissolved everything into a single boundary. I then can style this. So for example, I'll give it a nice yellow style, just so I know my area of interest. And I can actually tidy up these fragments as well. So for those that are familiar with using Land Registry, there are occasions where you get this bit of legacy data. Just to quickly demo how to tidy that up is you can draw a new shape over the top by hitting draw and say choosing area. You can then basically just hover around the outside of those messy bits, double click to create kind of that red block. And then you just merge these two together by subtracting the data, kind of hole punching away the mess, and then merging these two together. And you can see now I haven't got any of those legacy bits that make the site boundary a bit messy. Okay. Other things that I would do as well when I've got this boundary is I would use our T-marks tool. We've got a T-mark which just indicates which side of the boundary we're working on. And you can draw those fairly easily by clicking on the edge. It should snap to the edge and then drawing your T-mark that automatically looks like this. So I'm not going to do too many, but hopefully you can see the value in spending a bit of time to make that neat. That works particularly well if some of the maps you're printing are really zoomed in and it's hard to see which side of the hedge or the wall you're working on. So particularly here, it might be good just to have some T-marks to illustrate that the plan and the boundary of interest is here. Okay, so that's just to demonstrate those T-marks. The other thing I would do as well is you can put on the area of the total site. For this site itself, obviously I've never been here before. What we'd always recommend doing is using Ordnance Survey Master Map. And Ordnance Survey Master Map, as I described in those slides, is the initiator of the best guess baseline. It's kind of the official outlines and boundaries of things. And to access that, you can hit New, Download Data, and then there's this master map topography layer that you can choose. You then choose your plan, which in my case is my land registry parcels, and you give your site a name, site A, for example. And so this purchase is licensing me as a user for 12 months use of the OS master map vector, and it's being calculated pretty much bang on £1 per hectare, just over, and it will vary depending on where you are in the country. You hit download now, and then you're given this download data option, which is for you to basically say, am I charging this onto my client or am I taking it as an in-app cost? If it's for a client, you can obviously add a client code and choose billable, and that will just come out of your monthly report that's sent to your accounts team or anyone on your billings tab. If it's non-billable and it's like an at cost to you as an individual, you click download now. And what that's done is that's now just sending that boundary to our Ordnance Survey database, and it's going to extract for me all of the features that make up this farm. It takes about 20 seconds to run. And once it's done, you hit refresh on your screen, and you can see now what it's loaded for me is all of the features that make up this estate. So for example, I've got the buildings. I'll turn off the labels for now. I've got the buildings, and I've got all these different agricultural fields that have been picked up, including the woodlands, which gives me a really good starting point for understanding, I suppose, the lay of the land. I can see this is mixed woodland, but the main blocker with this is it's not in the language for biodiversity net gain. This is in a language that is very useful for creating asset registers and building plans, but it needs some extra understanding, particularly with these grass fields, about, is it designated? Is it species rich? Is it more verdant ryegrass? And you can kind of see through the satellite, but the difference between, grassland and arable isn't being picked up, etc. And so this is where we've built this UKHabitat best guess baseline in partnership with UKHab Limited. I'm going to demonstrate now. So again, you go through the same process of new download data, but this time you want to choose UKHabitat best guess baseline. You have to search for your valid OS license. So as I've just purchased site A, I can download site A, which is this demo's site, and I'm therefore in license. For those that are PSGA, you've got an existing license, you need to either search for your license in here or get in touch with the support channel by using the support button at the bottom right-hand side of your screen. So I can give it a name, site A. If you've got an SBI number, do feel free to put it in. The algorithm that does best guess baseline just takes a bit of information from the RPA and can assign it, but it isn't necessary. So I'm just going to leave it for now. You can see then, because I'm on a professional account, I've automatically had a 30% discount to this. So this is working out about £1 a hectare. Again, if I wasn't, it would be 30% more expensive. Hit download now, and exactly the same as before. You can give it a job code, assign it to either billable or non-billable, and hit download now. Now, this process is going to take about 5 minutes. This isn't quite as easy as just going to get the data from Ordnance Survey. What we are doing behind the scenes now is we are taking each one of these features, including the woodland, including the grassland, and running it against 15 or 16 different algorithms to provide a best guess of what's actually on the ground. Is it grassland? Is it arable? Is it temporary grassland or is it permanent grassland? Did it have winter cover crops? Did it not? So while that's running in the background, I'm just going to show you 3 functions that also can help with your BNG assessment. The first one is the collaborate function. So you may want to invite a colleague into this map or a friend or a neighbor, and you can do this by hitting the sharing settings button. It might be behind my head, depending on how well formatted your page is at the moment, but you can hit share the map and then type in your colleague's name, for example, ben@thelandapp.com, and add him as a viewer. Oh, yeah, I'm on the test account, so won't get a direct email. This is going live on Tuesday next week. But that's basically now sent Ben a notification in his inbox that I have invited him to my map, which is this BNG webinar demo. If he hasn't already got an account, he will receive how to activate it, and you will receive £10 referral credit. If he has already got an account, he'll just be able to click on the link and log in straight away. The second tool I want to quickly show you is the reports function. And the reports function has 2 quite powerful bits of information that you can use. The first is the plan summary. And so the plan summary will break down all of the different features that I've got in a plan. So at the moment, I've just got land registry, an OS master map area, for example. But if I run a plan report on the OS master map area, I instantly get a very clean breakdown according to Ordnance Survey about the farm that I'm working on. So how many buildings do they have? They've got 38 buildings within that area. And what percentage cover is natural habitat is 25%, with 21% of those being mixed woodland and 2.25 being conifer woodland. So you can very quickly from this site start to understand what the lay of the land is in kind of hard asset register figures. The other thing that you can do in here is you can run a data layers report. Earlier when I turned on the priority habitat, that was one of 95 data layers that Land App has in the system. But you might, for your BNG calculation, you might need to know a bit more about different designations and whether there's any opportunity for certain habitat, etc. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to run my land registry boundary through all of the data layers that Land App has, and I'll just get sent a clean report back to say whether I do or do not. Just in the name of time, I'll just do those ones. Demo report, get done. And so what we're doing in this process is we're basically just taking that 90 hectare boundary and we're just quickly comparing it to all of the database, all of the data layers that we've got in our database. So yeah, designations, is there any triple SIs, public footpath, what's the length of public footpath, and a lot of opportunity layers as well. So for example, we've been working with the Forestry Commission with their England woodland creation. This report will tell us which layers we intersect and which we don't. And why I'm showing it this way around is if you do it this way around, you save you toggling on and off loads of different layers. This will tell you which layers you can toggle up, which should toggle on, because we are intersecting them. So for example, we've got 2,146 meters of public right of way. We're in the Forest of Dean. I'm in the Dimmock and Pontley parish, etc., etc. So you're getting quite a nice breakdown, including we're in a high spatial priority for woodland creation according to Forestry Commission. So this is another, a little thing. When we're building our plan in a moment, maybe woodland creation in the right place might be a good thing to do, as well as a bit of water quality, not a lot, and keeping rivers cool, some riparian buffers as well. And we're also in a beeline. So these are different targeting layers that allow you to either tell your client the types of habitat they might want to be creating, or as a developer, the type of ones you need to avoid. Other than that, we've got priority habitat, we've got forest, etc., which all should come through our best guess baseline. Also in this report, we say what you don't intersect. So if, for example, we don't have any triple SIs, there's certain designations you really need to be aware of when you're doing a BNG assessment, but this report has told me that I don't have any of these designations, and therefore gives me a bit more confidence when I'm going on those surveys. This report can be downloaded to Excel as well, by the way, by hitting the download button there. I'm going back to my map, and in the time that I've been doing that demo, my best guess has arrived. So what's being served is a version of that Ordnance Survey master map data, but it's way more ready for the biodiversity assessment. So rather than having to walk the fields straight away, I've now got at least the best guess of what's happening on the ground for me to then start thinking about where should I focus my effort on my surveying, and where might there be an opportunity for biodiversity net gain applications. So with this particular site, most of this has actually come out of conifer woodland. So it said mixed. So we've got a lot more conifer here than what originally was said. Plus some of this grassland has been coming out because I assume it's on the priority habitat. So you can see that these two patches of grassland are coming through the priority habitat as good quality, semi-improved grassland, whereas these two are coming out as modified grassland. So before I've even gone into the field, I get that idea of where the areas of potential higher value grassland might be. I don't think there's a tiny bit of temporary grassland. Maybe I should have gone more arable. So where there are arable, just to let you know, what we do when we're running the assessment is we look at the grass area, or the area of interest, the arable field, and firstly just look at the temporal changes in vegetation cover. And that allows us to quite easily distinguish between grassland and arable. For the arable, we look at it and see when it was last bare. And when we say bare, when we don't detect any vegetation cover between the months of November and January or so. And that allows us to start unpicking whether it's temporary or permanent grassland. So this field, for example, although would question a little bit, saying that it was bare in December 2022. So we're basically saying it's currently grassland, but it's been reseeded at some point in the last 2 years, which is when you're on an ecological survey might be quite hard to see, or it might just be that it's recently been part of a garden, so they might have recently reseeded that garden. But we get that temporal element at scale about which fields are bare and when. And then that also means for detecting things like winter cover, we can, for arable fields now, show you on a map which ones have had bare soil over the month of November to January, sorry, and which ones did have some form of wintergreen cover. So we're basically using Earth observation to provide a bit more nuance to your surveying. So when you're stood in a field, you know when that field was last sown. I've personally been on quite a few surveys where you're stood in a ryegrass field, for example. You don't know if it's a ryegrass lay from the last 2 years or it's been there for 30 years. The best guess baseline will differentiate between those for you. So these are permanent lays if they come out as modified grassland versus the temporary ones that come out orange. Okay. And just to show you the priority habitat that's been picked up. So if I turn on priority habitat, you can see that we've basically been picked up priority habitat woodland, which has come out in here, and also these priority habitat orchards, which hopefully have been assigned traditional orchard codes as well. So the best guess baseline has taken the priority habitat and melded it into a lot of other data sets to give you this single source of best guess. Again, just to reiterate, this isn't to replace an ecological survey. This is to give you instant access to good data. So now I've got my best guess. I just want to quickly whistle through how to build a management plan. So on this, let's just assume these are my 2 sites because they're 2 modified grasslands. Potentially when you're doing the management plan, you may want to have a little site visit first, but just to show you the tooling, I can choose these 2 fields as my target areas. I can right click on them and I can copy them to a plan. That plan is going to represent my future, and I'm going to bring it over to a land management plan, and I'm going to call this future version 1 because I'm going to do some scenarios in a moment. So by bringing that over, I'm saying that this is my focus area for my biodiversity net gain system, and I can now draw these to what I want them to become. So for example, I can let the corridor around the edge maybe scrub over. So I can assign those a scrub code. I can say with the rest of this, I'm going to maybe do a bit more of a scrubby, maybe a scrubby corner in here. And again, this is just me making things up. And for these, I'm going to try and turn them into a neutral grassland. Okay. My target condition, I'm going to turn to good. I want these to be good condition. And then the scrub, I'm going to leave as blank just to show you what the tool does. Okay. So this could be one scenario, which is I'm doing a bit of grassland enhancement and also a bit of scrub creation. I may not know whether that's the right thing I want to do. So I'm going to create another scenario by duplicating this future, again into a land management plan, but calling it version 2 and creating plan and amending this slightly. So I may, for example, want to do a bit of woodland planting down here, W1G in good condition. And then let's maybe just say, let's see what happens when I go to moderate, because the temporal elements of creating good quality grassland can sometimes hinder uplift as well. Okay, so I've now got 2 scenarios. I've got future V1 and future V2. And I've got a best guess baseline, or now let's assume I've ground truthed it, which I haven't, but I've got a baseline that I can now run through our new biodiversity toolbox. Okay, all of the codes, because they've come through the best guess baseline, are down to the right level, apart from, I know there might be some edge cases where we just don't have, especially for the smaller shapes, the Earth observation really struggles. But actually for these 2, for example, we've just got grassland, which I can manually change to modify grassland, for example. Okay, so you can edit the best guess. It's not going to be perfect. It is a best guess, but it is at least giving you quite a good understanding of what is currently there. So for example, I'm just going to bring off this woodland in a slightly ad hoc way, which you guys can spend more time doing. So I've improved my baseline and tinkered with it. I haven't, however, assigned any condition scores to the baseline. So what I will do, just to demonstrate, I will turn this field into a poor condition baseline grassland. So I've got poor condition, and this one I've not assigned anything. Okay, now we're ready to create, or at least calculate, biodiversity units through our new tool. To access it, you have to have your baseline, and then you don't have to have any future plans. If you don't have any future plans, we just tell you the baseline unit. But if you want to calculate uplift, you need a future plan. You access it by clicking the three dots next to the baseline and clicking Toolbox. Within the toolbox, we've released this new button that's called Estimate Biodiversity Net Gain. You click that button and hit Run, and what LandApp does is it's now basically running that baseline against your two scenarios. So it's going to spit out three layers for me. It's going to set out the baseline scenario, which is what's just state of play, what are the existing units. It's then going to spit out a plan. Oh, there we are, it's already done. Great, it's quick. It's then going to spit out a plan for my version 1 uplift and my version 2 uplift. So just to take those in turn. So for example, for my baseline, between these two, my baseline units based on their condition, which is moderate and poor, are this value. So my moderate grassland baseline units is 15, and my poor grassland is a 10.53. Okay. My future scenario then, version 1, which was just this, exactly the same has happened, apart from we've got quite a few more attributes in the right-hand table. So for example, my good condition grassland is generating an uplift of 20 units because of its baseline being 6.43 and its creation units being 26.99. So I'm getting an uplift unit from doing this creation of modified grassland to good of 20 units. For this heathland, so for the mixed scrub, we're getting an uplift of 6.97 because the baseline was 2.97 as modified grassland, and then the uplift via creation is 9.94. So you can very quickly on a map start doodling up the different areas, and maybe for these we could put a let me just do them all at the same time. Condition score and maybe the code name. So you can see that these are the units that we could potentially generate and are therefore marketable through this creation. In contrast, we obviously did a scenario just to see the difference. So I would do exactly the same, which I would turn on the condition score, the uplift, and the code name. And you can start to see the difference in units depending on which one you've done. So for example, we've actually got a negative uplift by creating this woodland here. So the creation of, well, that kind of makes sense. The creation of woodland along the edge from moderate grassland going into woodland of good condition is a negative uplift. And the reason for that is the temporal time it takes to get to good woodland. So we've been playing around the net gain calculator by trying to achieve ecologically difficult condition to get to, good condition, native broadleaf. It takes longer. There's a 30-year lag time, and therefore the units to sell are lower. So hopefully that's given you a bit of an insight into how you can start appraising design. All of this can be printed. So we've got, you can print off this as a plan, share it with clients, collaborate, and our print function is found up here. Remember that you can save print templates as well. So if you've pre-formatted a print template, actually I might just quickly show you. Here's my plan, customized print. I can have a pre-formatted template like my BNG plan that's just going to add all the legends, etc. that I did earlier, bit of Blue Peter. You can change the standard of the base map and the color of the base map to make it a bit neater, and then you can purchase it. But the main output you probably want from this is, rather than the print, you also want to get the table view. So what we've done is all of that data is now available in the table view, so you can see how those scores were calculated, and those values can be copied and pasted into the official metric. We are working on a official metric populator behind the scenes. At the moment, you need to manually move the data from here to your official calculation. Okay, but hopefully this is a very dynamic tool. You can see how quick it happens. So in the space of 25 minutes, we've gone from knowing nothing about that site to having a very good estimate of baseline units, and also potential through the creation of different habitats in different conditions. For those that are using the BNG reports, remember, you can access that within here and that will start populating, but there is an hour delay on the reports. And that was the main bit of feedback, is that with BNG, a lot of people are wanting instant data. And so by using this new uplift tool, you can very quickly calculate potential through the conditions using the different rules that we've set. I hope that's answered your questions and given you a bit of a flavour of what's to come next week. We will be doing a lot of marketing around this, so please do keep your eye out on it. But to reiterate, the Best Guess Baseline is available to all users, but professional users get a heavy discount. And then the BNG tool that I've just been demonstrating is only available to professional users. So please do consider upgrading. Thank you very much. And I can see there's lots of questions that have come through. So Kathy, my colleague behind the scenes, has been fielding them. It says biodiversity metric. Has this been updated to the statutory metric? So they're calculated in the same way. So the statutory metric calculates it in the same way. It's just the new legislation that's built around it, I believe. Although if I'm wrong, do let me know. Yeah, so the question from Anon, can you use this best guess baseline on land you do not own as a speculative task? Yes, absolutely. I've just done this for this area. I don't know this land at all. It's all speculative. It's using data that's freely available. But remember, as part of the application on the digital register, you need landowner consent. So it's all good and well doing speculative units. If you're site finding, this can be a really nice way of just working out who to speak to, but you do need to ensure that you've got landowner consent before you apply. A question from Chris, does the best guess baseline subdivide OS master map if the vegetation model suggests the division? Yes, really good question, Chris. It does. So what we have, and I don't know if there's any examples here, maybe this, where we basically retain, oh no, sorry, that's the BNG results, best guess. We retain the OS master map feature ID. So the feature ID will tell you if it's been split or not. So this is 375. It might be that this is split as well. Oh, no, it's not. So they've got unique feature IDs. But yeah, where we do split, just double check the feature ID. So if the vegetation shows that the master map's not quite as accurate as it could be, we do split those features. A question from Alex, what is the functionality of the new BNG tool if you do not also buy the best guess baseline? Yeah, so Alex, the BNG tool does not require the best guess baseline. So if you've already got a habitat map or you've drawn it on Land App, providing you're on the professional subscription, you can use the baseline, the BNG tool. The best guess baseline is just a way of us knowing that the data is based on authoritative data, and it's just a very rapid way of doing it. So it's not a mandatory thing for the BNG tool, but it is a recommended thing. Question from Anon, does it assume habitat condition? So no, it doesn't. We're very much steering away from condition at the moment. We know that there's people out there that believe that you can do condition without an ecological assessment, but our firm position is that you need to do a condition assessment in the field, and hence why we're not assuming any condition. When we do calculate the units, however, if you haven't assigned one, we assign a moderate one on your behalf just to make sure we can get some values out the other side. Alice, can you create the best guess baseline and then amend it when you have more information? Exactly, Alice, yeah. So once you've got your best guess baseline, you can keep this up to date. We see this as a dynamic data set that you are keeping running. Make sure you keep editing the original one rather than the BNG outputs. But you can basically, keep it up to date. So if you don't know the condition for now, leave it blank and then add the condition score, where's my condition here is, add the condition score as and when you know it. And then just keep this up to date as your live source of truth that you can always refer back to. Are you considering creating templates for the management plans that could be accessed in the reports tab? And then we can edit to make it more personal. Might be a nice addition. So yeah, really good point. So I've got a slide actually, so just to let you know, we do have this BNG dashboard as well, which you can access through the professional subscription, which just aggregates all of your units across your entire portfolio that can be filtered by specific clients or specific maps. And I think what this question is can we make the templates a bit more bespoke for the management plans? It is possible. We are actually doing a big refresh of the dashboard at the moment. We've had, lots of feedback on it and we think it's got potential, but there's more things we want to do to make it better. But I think actually your question is already on there. I think if you do have access to the dashboard, the tab that's called Future is your land management plan. Maybe I need to get that renamed. Where can we find details of professional user subscriptions? Yeah, very good point. Probably should have covered that. So once you're on the Land app, if you click the little person icon at the top right and head to the account button, within here, there's a button called subscription, and you can see what tier you are on. If you are the admin, you can make everyone a professional. If you are not the admin, you will need to speak to a admin to get you added to professional, I believe. But you hit change subscription, and you can see the pricing here. So what we're talking about today is it's £30 per user per month, or you can join an annual contract for 10% discount, and you get a lot of benefits, including access to the BNG calculator, and the discount on the best guess baseline. So if you're buying a baseline that's say greater than 100 hectares, you'd probably save money by going onto the subscription. Question from Giles. Does the best guess only work with master map layer, or will it work with OS 25,000? Yet Giles, at the moment, we're not using, I think you're referring to vector map local. We're not using that at the moment. We're using OS master map topography, and the reason is because it's an authoritative data set that's accepted by planning authorities. So it's basically getting your data in a format that's already underpinned by the national standard, so to speak, and hence why we're sticking with master map. Ian Crump, an excellent tool. Thank you, Ian. To give to prompt outputs and drive decisions. Once I have plans agreed, will the platform be able to host ongoing ecological condition assessments for years 1, 2, 3, and 5? Very good question. So yes, you can do that already. Might need to go back here. So on your map, Ian, what I would always recommend doing is starting to use the folder structure. So these can be BNG outputs, for example. And what I would probably do is just call this baseline, like so. I've made 2 folders. So for the BNG outputs, you can basically just drag these in and basically just make your map a bit tidier, like so. With the baselines, what I would probably do, and what I would recommend doing, is the day you get your BNG accepted, you can duplicate this plan, baseline habitat assessment, and call it 2024 master, for example, or come up with a naming convention. And that contains your condition as of today and lock it. Yeah, so make sure that is correct as of today and then lock it. Then keep this one to be dynamic. And when it comes to your 2-year, do exactly the same and lock it again. And then if you're asked around how has the condition changed over time, or have you been audited, if you get audited, you then have a running log of those baselines as they've changed, either condition or as new habitats are being introduced. So just be, you can be quite strict on yourself to keep that audit trail nice and clean. Question from Melanie. If you add the SBI number, will all the cropping and option data from BPS and CSS be available? So the BPS, yes. So your BPS, actually, let me rephrase that. No, your land cover using your SBI number will come through. So it helps the model ensure the difference between arable and permanent grassland. It doesn't bring down crop codes because the RPA does not make that freely available. That is data that you've given, but we can't extract your RPA declarations, although we'd love to, and there are potential routes forward for that. And stewardship, no. Stewardship, unfortunately, at the moment is still a paper-based system. You still submit your stewardship application with crayons, and therefore it's held as an image on their database. It isn't geospatial data. However, this is a massive part of what we're working on at the moment. As part of your stewardship application, we would love for you to be able to submit it digitally, which means every year we could be able to access on your behalf your previous stewardship plan in a map format that you can overlay. And we are working with government on that and trying to get some momentum. But at the moment, your SBI number just helps us with grassland and permanent and arable. John says, can I use my own ecologist survey baseline habitat data set rather than the best guess? Yep, John, absolutely. So if you've already got a digital copy of a habitat data layer, you can upload it to the Land app by hitting new, import data, and choosing import from file. And you can upload the habitat data. One thing I would just make you aware of is if I go to help land app, help land app, in here, there's a technical guidance for importing data. So if you are importing data, just give this a read, because the main thing it needs you to do for UK hab codes is you need to make sure that the heading of that UK hab code is LA feature type. And so that means that all the styles will remain and the tool will work. So, and then there's also the condition assessments and secondary codes. To just read this guidance before uploading data and make sure that the ecologist should be able to help you just get it formatted, ready for use in LandApp, rather than just uploading it, because it'll be uploaded as a red boundary rather than anything else. Okay. So we've got about 5 more minutes for questions. Just a note, we will answer these questions and I'll keep going past 2 o'clock. If you need to shoot, please do, but we'll stay and try and get through as many of these as we can. There is a survey when you leave. Please answer those questions. It will just help us understand the next couple of months in particular. So can the maps made on the lap be easily transferred to QGIS? Yeah. So everything you create, if you purchase a best guess baseline or you create a map, for example, you can export that plan using the 3 dots and these 3 dots and hitting export, and you can download it in 4 different file types. So GeoJSON will work in QGIS. KML allows you to upload it to something like Google Earth. So you can upload it to Google Earth. Shape files is around ArcGIS, for any ArcGIS users, and DXF is for CAD design. So if you're working with a firm consultancy that uses CAD, which is more the landscape planning type design, you can share it as a DXF. So yeah, it's very interoperable. You know, the data is yours. You can download it and use it. As a note, remember that the OS license is only 12 months on this one, but the best guess as you edit it is in perpetuity, because it slowly becomes less and less like master map as you add things. So it's a derived data set instead. Can you I know you've done that one. Are you going to add national character area layers as well as water body catchments? Yes. So we've got NCA in the database. I think it's coming in the next couple of weeks. National character areas are very important, as are local planning authorities for your biodiversity net gain assessment. So we're trying to get it in. So we've got water body catchments already. So if you go into the water section, we've got the Cabba catchments and we've got the river water body catchments as well. So you can see those things, but we are going to be uploading national character areas very soon. Thank you. And yeah, we'll make sure that's happening. So can the app be used while offline? No, not at the moment. We are looking at the moment at building our second version of our mobile app. We've got a mobile app live at the moment that's mainly made for photo evidencing and measuring. The next version will work offline, but it's predominantly around surveying for things like SFI, hedgerow assessment, soil samples. And then we will be version 3, looking more at the UKHab BNG type stuff. So you will be able to use it offline, but probably not for a good couple of months yet. Question from Dave: what data set are you using for the temporal analysis? Yeah, Dave, we use a combination of Google Earth Engine, Sentinel. There's I mean, I'm not the person that's built it. I have to ask the technical guys, but yeah, a lot of it is Sentinel derived data. So open source European Space Agency stuff that we've built our own algorithms on. Question from Lara: can I bring in data from Habitat Survey? Yeah, hopefully I've just answered that one, Lara, which is you can follow the technical guide on our help center and just make sure it's formatted correctly. And another question exactly the same. Yeah, so if you've got existing habitat data, LandApp can ingest it. Just make sure that it is following this technical guide before you do it. Particularly this one, the UKHab code has to have LA feature type with a capital F and a capital T. In the example, if you update the baseline, you need to rerun it against the future plan. Yeah, so thank you, Anon. Yeah, so you basically get the baseline ready as you can, and then rerun the assessment. So what I would probably do is I would just delete this entire folder of BNG outputs, delete it, and then just rerun the best guess against those plans. Because you can have an unlimited number of runs. Just make sure you're aware of what's the master baseline, and you're running it against that. And then it should now just rerun the updates version for me in the background. How am I intended for handling corporation of rivers and watercourses? Yeah, so at the moment, the habitat assessment doesn't provide creation units for the rivers. We are very much looking at, I believe, yeah, we're very much looking at the habitats only at the moment. Hedgerows and rivers are the next thing that we're going to update. So at the moment, although I can check, I don't think it does river units. Yeah, we're not there with rivers yet. So that's next, Jack. Be busy beavering away at the other stuff. Question from Andrew. As local nature recovery strategies develop, will they be integrated? Yeah, absolutely, Andrew. That's our plan. I think providing that the local authority is creating it in a GIS form, like a digital map, we will be able to ingest it. I'm hopeful that they use UKHab as the underpinning language, as the target for the nature recovery, although that's to be said. But we are involved in conversations with Norfolk County Council, Surrey County Council, Gloucestershire County Council, and a couple of others. So if you need us to, and Shropshire as well. So we're working with quite a few of them, but you know, the nature of the beast is that everyone has just got to crack on and do it, and therefore some are doing it in slightly different ways. But if we can centralize that, we will. Do we need to purchase master map if we already have the field boundaries and land parcels digested? So if you want the best guess baseline, you need to purchase OS master map, regardless if you've already got the field parcels. However, you can create your own habitat map if you've got the field parcels. It just won't include all of the master map features that you get. Could we recap on the costs? Yep. So the first cost is £30 a month per user for the subscription. So to access the tools, you need to be on a subscription of the professional. So £30 per user per month. If you go for an annual upgrade, you get 10% discount, so £324 a year. And that gives you unlimited access to the BNG tool and a whole lot more, which you can see on this list. And then for the best guess baseline, there is a pricing page on our website, which I will load up now very quickly. Pricing, which it works out, depending on your size, about £1 a hectare, dropping down to, I think 25 pence a hectare or something, depending on size. So here's some examples. So the best guess baseline, yeah, £15 for 10 hectares. For 5,000 hectares, is £3,500 or 2,400 if you're a professional, with that 30% discount. So £30 a month is the minimum. You can use your own data and run it through the tool. You don't need anything else. But we'd love to see more people using the best guess baseline for that authoritative, clean, reliable data that just saves you time and saves you costs on the initial ecological surveys, and just focuses the ecologists on their improving that existing data. So a cost on maps on top of professional. Hopefully I just covered that. You can import your own data. You can download it from the RPA, but you only have to buy data if you're using the best guess baseline. But there's other ways to get data. Can you add individual trees? Yeah, individual trees can be drawn on, I think, by hitting drawing point, and drawing some points, and then assigning them to individual trees. So there's different tree types: rural trees, urban trees, and then there's also ancient trees, veteran trees, and notable trees, not noble trees. So yeah, you can draw trees on. I can see we can add a condition score, but not the size. Yeah, good point. The condition score can be added. Let me take that one away around condition score. So Kathy, if we could just make a note to double check with trees whether we need a small, medium, and large, because I think we used to have small, medium, and large, but I cannot remember. Yeah, we'll have to do a bit of looking about trees and how that integrates. If you have an island habitat, say a parcel of shrub within a neutral grassland, is there a way to draw this area from the other habitat? When I tried before, it had the polygon on top of it. Yeah. So basically, I think what the question is hypothetically, let's say in this grassland, we had some patches of scrub. The easiest way to draw them is you click on the grassland to start with, you hit draw, you choose area, and then you can either just click to draw those scrub islands, for example, like this, but that makes quite rectangular shapes. What I like to do is hold shift on my keyboard and then click and hold on my mouse, and I can be quite bespoke with the shapes of those scrubs. So you can see I'm being quite delicate, and I've now got these floating patches. You then double click to finish and hit escape, and I've now got these 2 red blocks that I need to do 2 things with. Firstly, just to show you that scrub patch isn't being minused from the neutral grassland. So I need to first subtract them. And I do that by holding shift and selecting them and finding the subtract tool within the buffer. And that will then hole punch the hectareage away. So you can see that it went down to just under 5 hectares. And then I can assign these to a scrub code like H3H, and I've now got floating scrub. You can duplicate features as well. So if there's 3 patches that look the same, you can hit the duplicate button, and then you can have another patch that looks the same and subtract that as well. So, okay, question from Julia. Estimating the uplift is purely an estimate without the condition scores of the BNG. How does this compare to the actual biodiversity metric calculations? Yeah, so the uplift is estimated if we don't know the conditions. So Julia, we add conditions on your behalf to basically ensure that the units can be kept generated. If you put in a condition score for either the baseline or the land management plan, we take those conditions into account for you when calculating the uplift, and that marries up identically to the biodiversity metric. So if you put in the biodiversity metric now, 3.37 hectares of good quality condition grassland being created on top of whatever my baseline was, modified grassland, the numbers exactly match up. So providing you've got the area correct and you put the right condition score, our numbers marry up identically to the biodiversity metric. And if anyone detects otherwise, please let us know. But we've done a lot of rigorous testing on that particular point. The main discrepancy would just be around the strategic significance. So if you don't think it's strategically significant and we do, there might be some nuance in those numbers. But yeah, the numbers marry up to the calculator exactly. So this goes live on the 24th, which is next Tuesday or Wednesday, and Kathy will make sure that everyone here knows about it through an email. So all this data are accessible through the Land App API, so it can be brought into Power BI. Yes, so absolutely. And what the question from Anonymous is asking there is, if you're an entity within Land App and you've got multiple team members creating multiple maps, you own the right to that data. And what we provide, or what we can provide, is something called an integration API. Technical word. It's just a bit of plumbing between the Land App and an external bit of software. So as your team are creating more and more maps, whether that's biodiversity net gain plans or stewardship plans, that API or that bit of plumbing can ship all of the individual maps data to a central headquarters, and you can therefore get a live feed of data from your team, from the consultants, about how their baselines are doing, where are the land management plans happening, etc. And you can start to create your own visualization on them. So they've mentioned Power BI, which is a dashboard platform. There are hundreds of other bits of software that you can ingest this data with. So if you would like to know a bit more, perhaps we can do a technical webinar on just the API generally and how people can leverage that. As a note, to access the API, all of your team needs to be on professional subscription. So if you are getting the Biodiversity Net Gain tool for the team, as part of that price, you also get the biodiversity the integration API. So it's a win-win. It's just part of the same subscription. So Lorna, is this using UKHabitat version 2? Yes. Is this using the latest version of the BNG calculator? Yes. So this is both using 4.0 and version 2 of the habitat layer. As soon as there's an update, we will try and get things up to date as quick as we can. There's normally a technical lead-in time of about 4 to 6 weeks. But yeah, the versions are stated on our website. So triple SI areas, I need to do a bit more digging. I think with BNG, I might pass on that question for now and just release a statement. I can't remember exactly how this is currently interacting with SSSIs, and just need to make sure that we're doing the right thing on that. That's a really good point. But I think it used to be, although don't quote me on this, it used to be that you couldn't do BNG on triple SIs, but I think there might be a bit more nuance than just a hard no, but I'll follow up after the webinar. I appreciate there's still over 100 of you on the call, so I'm just going to keep going, and we're nearly at the bottom of the list. So thank you all for staying. Question from Samantha: how have you handled the difference in Scottish and English data set, i.e., where the priority habitat's not available? We've simply just tapped into both, Samantha. So we've got a direct data feed from both the Scottish priority habitat and the English priority habitat, and they're very similar. They're not identical, but we just access both of them. Is buying a print impacted by the professional discount? Yes. So that's a good point, and I need to remind myself what the discount is. I think you get 20% off if you're a subscriber. So you get 20% off your prints if you join the professional or the standard subscription. So yeah, it does. It saves you money on printing as well. Question from Nick: hi Dan, looks excellent, but well beyond my skills to use at present. Have you got a series of land app training sessions? Hi Nick. Yeah, as mentioned at the start, if you go to our YouTube channel, there's an introductory webinar that I ran late last year. It's an hour long, but it'll get you up to speed with how to use the general functions of land app. And we are looking to do some more training throughout 2024. So keep your eye on your emails. More of a question for DEFRA rather than land app. Oh, not sure I like the sound of that. Ask it anyway. As a land manager, I can offer biodiversity units and credits on a range of nature markets, or once registered as units available in DEFRA's BNG. Are they limited for also being offered as units on other nature markets? Put my hands up. I do not know the answer to that question. I think that would be probably best get in touch with an advisor if I were you, John. I think we're talking about some, big figures potentially. I think just make sure you're seeking the right advice and getting the right person to help you through that. Question from Rebecca, or B, I believe. So lovely to see you on here. If the temporal nature of woodland creation means it turns into a negative uplift, doesn't that go against the government tree targets? Obviously, woodland creation isn't always the best thing to do anyway, but that seems to be a different issue. Yeah, I think the issue was here, B, is it does go, there's some nuances in it that we're still trying to unpick, and I think with woodland creation they are driving it in certain places, but perhaps not through BNG. UKO, for example, England Woodland Creation, is quite a generous offer that we're working on, and so perhaps offsetting for woodland, I don't know, we need to properly understand why that is, but I just know some of those more ecologically complex habitats like your ancient woodlands or your diverse woodlands and your diverse grasslands just have this temporal multiplier. So particularly if you're saying you're trying to get to good condition, it penalizes the total amount of units you can generate. I guess it just de-risks the investment is probably what they're doing. B is if you're trying to get good condition, it's very hard to do. So perhaps that's where they're thinking, although I'm not an expert on that particular bit. Can you add map images as a backdrop? So map images, if you mean upload your own versions of the maps like drone imagery, not yet, although our CEO Tim is very keen for that to happen soon. We're just trying to get it into the roadmap, but you can upload photos. So if you've taken photos in the field, you can upload georeference photos, which I don't have any easy to show, but you can drag and drop them on and it will then show the photos on the ground. I think, so Dave says, I think you can't do BNG on SSIs, but there may be parts of the site that aren't features. Yeah, Dave, I think I'm on your side. I would always step on the side of caution. If your site is a triple SI, it's probably going to be a no-go zone, if not definitely. So just do a bit of reading. Maybe we need to do a bit more research ourselves. Check the guidance. We're here as a tool. We're not an advisory body. So please seek advice when you need it. And thanks, Nick, for your comments. Okay, wonderful. We've made it to the bottom of the Q&A. So thank you so much for your time. Appreciate we went over. When you leave this webinar, please do fill out the quick survey form. So there is a survey form on the way out. And yeah, just leaves me to say thank you to all the amazing partners that have contributed. And if there's anything else we can do to help, let us know. Thank you so much. Take care.